that's so easy. And I don't know why none of them are taking the plunge to try it. Like it doesn't, you try it for 6 months and see what happens. Try it for a year. Like it's not even a big deal. Hire 4 people.
It'll be the second file in this team meeting. That's okay.
What are you asking?
What does, or I guess I shouldn't use a specific person. What does a asset manager do to bring in new advisor business?
Spam.
Mass email.
They host webinars and events, extract the emails or phone numbers, and then have the internals spam and phone call them.
How did they get people on the webinar in the first place? Do you know?
Spam. having global, investment, portfolio managers talk about the current state of the economy.
So, okay, I gotcha. So they're bringing on guests in the same way that I guess we would do a show to bring some insight and some value to what's going on with the market. So it leads back to their funds and then people start using their funds.
Yeah, the best webinars, and they make the advisor's job easier. So it's whether or not it's practice management, how to scale your business, how to be a better marketer, or what's going on, what you need to expect in the fourth quarter of 2021.
Have you seen that change over the past couple years, that asset managers are now getting into the business of realizing that their business isn't even about their funds in the first place?
No.
At
the end of the day, it's At the end of the day, every head of sales is literally watching how much flow comes in every day.
Flow is in
new dollars.
Oh, new dollars.
Like I remember working, and at one firm, our goal was $1 a day. Meant we were net positive, right? And that didn't, or an average of $1 million a day was the goal to hit the run rate. And that doesn't take into account that $1 million are leaking out every day at the same time. Another smaller firm I worked at, it was just, we need to hit every day. And specifically in these 3 funds, because they cost more than these 3 funds. So they're on that level. They're on the daily level.
Do you think there's an infrastructure problem? Like, is there ever a business that's growing where they pick what you would feel like could be the wrong funds and they're pushing a bad product, or you think it's bad marketing?
No, they're pretty smart. I mean, they know, right now they're not going to be pushing, they're probably not pushing a whole lot of, bond funds. They're probably pushing high growth equity products that are keeping up with the market, chasing and doing what everyone wants. I don't know. They're smart. They have the global economists say, this is what we see coming. And then they push a set of funds to match that. And there'll be 6 funds that are equity based, 6 funds that are fixed income based.
Do you think they have a trouble breaking down the intelligence, and then their marketing or whatever they're doing comes out as confusing because it's letters and jargon and high level stuff? You think they're missing the mark, or do you think they just don't get enough attention through doing the wrong channels like email? Like if they would put something somewhere on LinkedIn, would it even be good in the first place?
They don't do anything but push product is the problem. Everything's about a sale at the end of the day, and that's the problem.
And you said the best companies were the ones who are focusing on growing advisor business. What do you think that level of asset manager is, where people are just focusing on their funds, or they're focusing on the things outside of the funds that they know bring the value?
I don't think asset managers get to a point of providing value until they're at some level of scale, which probably, in my experience, feels like 30 million AUM. Everyone's kind of working to get to a level of now we're comfortable. And until then, it's product. They say they want to do it. They usually bring in a third party. Like that's why I think we'd be huge in that space, because they can't afford to build a department like ours. So rather than build a department like ours, feature us on your webinars, feature us in your content.
Because asset managers, I found, are like handfuls of people, right? You can think of big teams when you're getting into the billions, but even at higher 100 millions, low billions, it can still be like 4 people.
I shouldn't have said millions. It's billions. 30 billion is what I meant, not 30 million. Yeah, I mean, look at the company I worked at. It was when I got hired there, they were only at 2.5 billion, and we had 15 employees. We got
Okay,
up to
so it's more
5
than I
billion.
thought. Okay.
Yeah, we got up to 5 billion, and then we had 22 employees. But but you're right though. The back wall, the C-suite's only 4 people. It's the founder, the CEO, the chief investment officer, and
I
a lawyer.
got that. So there's like, it almost seems like a head 3 or a head 2
Yeah.
or so. Like there's 3 people who stepped into a room and said, let's start a business. I do this, you do this, you do this. And then they went off. Operations, sales, whatever.
It's
Third
generally somebody who left a big firm and had some cash to be able to not necessarily float the business, but keep them afloat, and then got the buy-in from the others. And because I've seen most of these things start with people who leave after they leave, they build it under the covers, and then the non-disclosure expires and they announce it.
Nice. That's interesting. So when you're at 22 people, what's everybody doing?
4 marketers, or 3 marketers, 4 internals, 4 externals. That's 10. 4 seniors. That's 14. 2 accounting, 16. 2 lawyers, 18. Some admins. That's it.
So in your marketing department, how many did you say there were?
I got up to 5, but I started as 2. Me and just a designer.
What did you guys do?
Everything.
What is everything in the designer asset manager world? I'm guessing white papers. Were you editing the websites? I mean, were you building the webinars?
Yeah. First thing that happens is you go in and lay out all the stuff on the table that the last regime left or whatever. They worked with an outsourced company, I think, like out of Toronto or something, some canned company, and they have all their stuff. And I'm like, first thing we're doing is redesigning. Like, where's the brand? Like, we need to establish that. Where's our brochure that says what we stand for, which 10 years ago was kind of your website, right? But like, what do we stand for? Break that down, rebuild it, mimic the fact sheets and the commentaries and the white papers to come look like that, redo all the literature. That's your first 6 months of work. And then generally at a firm like that, you're not handling your website on your own. You have a company you're paying to do it for, I think we were averaging $1,500 a month just based on what we were doing. But they built it. I think the website, I mean, back then, these websites were $100,000, but
oh shit.
So
anymore. That's crazy. Even with 4 or 5 people, you still got right into outsource. I guess you can't always do everything. That's an interesting thing too, is obviously you're going to have your specialties and you need to be running the show with those employees. So it's interesting to see where they box themselves in.
Well, right away, right? Because you've got commentaries and fact sheets, and anything with a number on it has to be updated every 90 days for the quarter. Has to go through compliance, all that stuff. Every change you make, just like advisors, has to be seen by compliance officers. So there's a lot of busy work that goes on. So it's not just promotion all day long.
What were they doing for promotion or for brand building?
Blast email when I got there. I was pushing against blast email the whole time. Like, stop, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. Okay, what do we do? Well, we need to put together, we should have monthly events. We should make sure that we're on LinkedIn. Like, that was all the stuff that I did, was get these guys into the 21st century.
How did they do?
We did, I think the company that I worked at would have been gangbusters if we got a shit ton of attention. Like, we were told all the time, like, man, you guys have the best marketing of this category. Like, they're like, you guys far out punch your weight. Like, we would assume you have a 100-person company based on what you guys do. So the business was built to sell to RIAs, but the products were not built for RIAs. They were built for the old.
It's tough too, because there are a lot of differences in the world. Like, the finance, like overall, obviously asset managers, the finance industry is like a big bubble, but there is a lot of segments when you think about it. If you break down the independents and the certain firms, as well as RIAs, what everybody even can use and to what capacity, brokerage accounts, SAM accounts, it changes how advisors get paid. all that can get very complicated. I can imagine creating can be difficult to deliver in a simplistic way.
Well, like the buzzword of the last decade has been like, we want to be in front of the RIAs. And like, all right, well, your products were built for the BDs. Sorry, like your product was built to be put on a platform and be an option, one of 10 that's going to stand there forever and just receive flow from. It wasn't meant for the RIAs, and that was the biggest challenge that world's facing.
I love that. Yeah. And it shows us what we learned, right? With us going against canned, we actually started realizing that we started stepping away from a lot of independents and firms because of their capability and capacity. You really have to find out where you land in your people. And that definitely comes with like knowing your market. But at the end of the day, your product has to deliver for that market you want.
Yeah. And I think that us fighting the world or wherever is stupid. Like, it actually has a service that is needed by those companies because those companies can't play in the world we play in.
I completely agree. I
don't like it. I don't think it works, but that's all they have.
Right. Right. It's true with the box, like with the box that we have, or the box that the industry provides. I feel like they fit in there well, and somewhere I don't want to fit in. So it's nice, actually.
Yep.
I appreciate them existing and some being able to check that box, you know, so that if you're only in that world, somebody gets some kind of marketing. But I realize where we come in is definitely more of the RIA and open ability side, because we're purely against canned content, and creating authenticity doesn't come inside a box.
Here's the thing that we have a challenge with the asset managers, is what you've seen with, I've seen with some of the others that I've worked with. When they hit a level of comfortability and each of those three guys is making 200 grand, they need to want to grow, because adding an expense to them at that level kind of does come out of their pockets still. Until they hit that 5 billion, like there's not a pool of money there. They're still splitting, you know, they're running closer to the margin than you'd hope.
And that's what I was thinking in terms of having those three people when you're at the top. And even if it's not all equal equity, but let's pretend it is, everybody's getting a third. We obviously know what that's like, splitting it three ways. You got to grow a serious business. So it's interesting. Same thing we found with MCo is there's certain advisors who really want to grow, but they can't afford the marketing service. I feel like they need to get there, as well as the asset managers. I feel like it's probably the same. And that's why we're trying to figure out a place of, you know, where everybody fits in and what we can actually do for those asset managers to get them to where they want to go.
It's kind of funny you say that, because they actually can afford it. It's just they have to take a step back. Like, it's going to be a tighter summer than it was, guys, because we need to take those bonuses and apply that to a marketing plan. But that marketing plan will get us to a place of 2x, and then vacations are back.
Yeah. Yeah. Hold your breath at 150 and let's get to 250 instead of tripling to 200. Yeah.
But all it takes is that smaller firm is one guy to be like, I'm not seeing it. What is this going to do? Like, what, you know, 8 months? And then they don't move.
Right. It's a lot. It is. It is a commitment. I mean, it really is. You do have to believe in it. I think the thing we realize is selling people on the idea of our execution and why it will work is important, but selling people the idea of marketing is not a thing that I feel like is worth anybody's time anymore. Social media is 20 some years old. If you don't believe in it, like, I can't make you. But at the same time, I know our old financial industry, I can't help but still try to push people to what I believe in. And I'm not trying to sell the unsellable. I just want to try to help people. And I believe, especially with the weight that these asset managers have and their capability, they don't realize the team they could establish or the content they could put out if they just switch their mind from white papers to creating content in a different way. They'd be putting out the same amount of content. It would just be the consumable kind that I really think grows brand.
I couldn't agree with that more. I for one, the first part of what you said, I am so tired of trying to convince people. Like, if we're not on the same page, like, let's just move along. Like, I'll answer your questions and I'm happy to teach and get into it and help you grow. But like, to be combative, and some of the people you and I've talked to in the past, I have no interest in it.
Here's the thing. Advisors are all over LinkedIn. They are all over LinkedIn. They're posting every day. They're literally showing you. They're the most raising hand group of people I've seen on there besides SaaS marketers. And that's probably just because of my industry and where we are. I'm sure there's a lot of people, but besides people looking for jobs, I find advisors to be very heavily promoting themselves again, as well as the SaaS industry for some reason. Why
I agree.
won't asset managers go to LinkedIn? Is it because I know they see it too? Is it because they can't execute? I don't believe they don't believe in it.
It's not because they can't execute. They're afraid of what it looks like, the optics. At a high level.
Actually doing it, or from other people?
Other people. At a firm of 50 people and up, I believe, at least at the mid-senior level, the mid-level, I think people are afraid of stepping out of line and feeling like, if my boss sees this, like, am I fitting the narrative of what I need to look like on social media? Like, I think there's that. So you're not going to see a lot of, you'll see no 25 to 45-year-olds who work in the middle of that company sharing on LinkedIn. And tell me if you do, because I'd love to see it. I don't. And I know they're all my former colleagues. The only thing they share is the corporate post the corporation put out, they reshare it, and they put it back out. At the senior level, they have been trained for 30 years to be buttoned up corporate robots that toe a company line. And they're not those people on the weekends. They go out and have fun with their family and drink beers and barbecue and do all that fun stuff. But when they're at work, they act like they're on CNBC, and like they don't understand that being human is the consumable thing that will propel them into the future. They literally cannot get in that frame of mind.
What's interesting to me, I feel, is that people will make the effort to make their business different, but they won't make the effort to show people why they're different. They'll be different in the background, but then when it comes to a website or decisions, everybody goes, well, let's present this way because this is what it's done. But you already know why you're special is because of the service you provide or the person you are. Why do you think people won't cross that line?
They're afraid. They're pander to the paycheck. Like, what if my boss doesn't like my idea? My idea is too out there. Our competitor doesn't do that.
So
what if that costs us money?
What do you think the solution is for I guess the asset manager world that they should be getting into? What are they doing now that they need to change? What are the steps to actually make real change in asset managing?
This will change it. This is what I actually think will change it. I think a boutique or a David comes along with 5 billion and barely even a blip on the radar of anybody. And they've got a CEO or someone who's a little bit more my age or around, or has a more youthful attitude on this state of the world, and comes out and is out there and telling a story, branding in front of people. And that trickles down to that business. And then the senior VPs and all the people within that business get behind that culture, and they're out there. It's why Ritholtz management feels so different than all the other RIAs, because they don't give a fuck. They just go out there and they're themselves. And Josh Brown and Ben Carlson and Blair Duquesne down in, like, that whole team doesn't give a shit. And they're built on a culture of, we're going to be us and we're going to do it the right way and be honest and always stand behind what we do. And like, I think an asset manager, a David, will come out and do that. And they'll go from 5 billion to 200 billion, and it'll get people's attention. And that will be the change. Then that what you'll see is this will be 2027, and you're going to see MFS, Templeton, or one of the big ones be like, we need that. How do we get that? And they're gonna hire a consulting firm, right? It's going to take forever.
The other thing I see is that if you look at the financial industry if you're not talking to specific advisors, like, advisors are very human people too. A lot of them I know sitting in meetings these days, even before it being so virtual, in t-shirts. A lot of us are and now I know a lot of guys who still wear suits and they want to present well for people, but a lot of times, like, if a client's popping in to sign something, you got jeans and flip-flops on, you're like, I'm just doing my job. They're a real person, so you connect with them. And I think that's where the asset manager world could fit in, is to realize that the client is the real person, the advisor is the real person, you guys are real people, and everybody's wearing a suit to make everybody feel like we're a little bit different than we really are, or buttoning up, leaning against a tree, saying certain things, producing white papers. We're all doing these check the box things that we think establishes us as one thing. And then we look the same as everybody else. And then we go
Dude,
silent.
we used to get emails to the whole company, at every company I worked at, from the top down.
You can go ahead. I have to, I'm just plugging this in so it doesn't die.
We used to get emails from the top down, from the CEO of the company at 4:30 the day before, that would be like, so-and-so or XYZ or whatever is coming to the office tomorrow for a walkthrough. We'll be full business formal tomorrow. Make sure your desk is cleaned up. Watch the commentary in the hallways. Literally strip the human out of everything we do, because a big RIA is coming in to do some due diligence. Okay.
Cleaning up the house before the family visits, so everybody.
That's one thing. I mean, of course we want that, but like, I got you. I know. I don't know. Like, you want there to be human in there. Like, that's my point.
You suck the personality out because personality isn't controllable and it makes you nervous. So you tell everybody to not act any which way, and then you have a bunch of robots and it doesn't show anything. Nobody feels anything, and then I think it just becomes about price. Or it becomes about exactly what you did, because there's no feel and there was no real connection.
Like, so what if someone hears an F-bomb in the hallway, or like the internal's throwing a baseball around? Like, so what? Like, that's what they do. They're 26-year-old dudes living in houses together, driving cars they can't afford. They throw footballs around. That's it. That's funny. It's interesting. Every internal when I had an Acura TSX, everyone.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Wholesalers were my favorite. Sometimes you had some really baller ones. There was a guy from Jackson who showed up with a driver. That was the best one. I don't know how
that's awesome.
That guy was rolling in, but he walked in with a full-fledged suit on. He had a driver, and I don't know if he was broke, but he seemed really important.
Dude, there was, her job was to be in charge of the wholesalers, not their sales, in charge of their presentations. She would, like, if you were a new wholesaler and showed up in a Mercedes, she would destroy you.
Really?
Like, that car cannot be better than a Nissan Maxima.
Oh,
you're not rolling up there
like that.
Oh my God, yeah, she would fucking kill people. It was awesome. One, you can't afford it. Two, you haven't sold shit.
I would be, yeah, that's hilarious. Interesting world. I feel like we could do a whole episode on this. Definitely. We could have these conversations. It's nice to hear the background too, because sometimes I don't hear like what you actually dealt with from your front perspective. You remember doing it, but it adds a lot of insight when you're like, we had to grow to this amount of dollars and we had this amount of team and this amount of dollars. I think that's some content that you could put out and say, this was our team. This is what we were doing. This is how we were running. This is what I think we should have done. You don't have to shit all over your old companies and things like that, but leave in a good light saying, this is what I learned. And these are the problems I would fix. One of the things I think is that you were in you were in their spot. You were the CMO in their shoes, in what they were looking for. Now we're just looking to be that outsourced in the way that you believed in.
I just think there's an opportunity for both. I think they need to continue to, even the big ones, have to continue to maintain. Like, they have to issue all the stuff they have to issue. I'm not telling them to do away with a lot of that, because that facilitates the business. They just need to bring in a human element to it. I think every asset manager of a certain level needs to have a consumable content department. Like, just add a new department. Don't try to retrain your people. Just hire a new group to build this and make it that. And they run around with cameras and film stuff and create consumable content. That's so easy. And I don't know why none of them are taking the plunge to try it. Like, it doesn't, you try it for 6 months and see what happens. Try it for a year. Like, it's not even a big deal. Hire 4 people.
Well, let's talk about this too. You said hire new people, but let's talk about you, right? You were somebody who was probably dying inside saying, why won't we be more consumable? Did you feel like anybody else was like that on your team? Do you feel like there's a bunch of creatives stuck in the box of the financial industry? Or do you think a financial creative is a corporate individual who doesn't care about consumable content?
Creatives stuck in the box in the financial industry end up leaving. They just leave because they can't breathe anymore. People bitch, right? I was one of them. You just go back to your desk, like, these guys don't know what the fuck they're doing, but you do it because it pays your bills. And unfortunately, when bonuses come out, if you're pushing against everyone the whole time, you don't get the same bonus as everybody else. So that 10 grand means a lot, right? So you play the game. So you have to hire new people if you want to create the consumable department, because you're not going to retrain. It's not, I don't mean to sound this way. You cannot retrain the mice not to know where to go for the food. They already know how to get the food. Like, you can't reteach them that.
You always have killer analogies. It always hits perfectly, honestly.
Dude, I remember telling the CMO of one of the big companies I worked at, like, he's like, tell me what you think about, like, where do you see things headed? And I was like, we need to stop emailing the way we're emailing. That was literally the moment that I felt a ceiling was put over my head at that firm for the rest of my life, because he was banking on everything they were doing on blast email. And he was like, you don't think we should be emailing like we're emailing? I was like, nope. And that was it. And I ended up leaving like a year or 8 months after, because it was people getting promoted around me. And I was like, well.
So it sounds like the industry, and this is a learning moment, I would say, for anybody who's hiring, is if you're going to hire a real creative, somebody with talent who can make consumable content, the leader, the asset manager, the person has to believe in it and allow that person to do it, or you're going to lose them. I would almost argue that it seems extremely near impossible to bring on talent if you're going to try to force them into the canned world.
They all say, this is the greatest thing. All of the job descriptions are like, are rosy, and then you get in there and they mold you into what they need you to be. What needs to happen is they hire the consumable content director and let that person build that team and run that team, and to have trust and give them autonomy to do so, like, and not have them report. The reporting structure has to be different.
Here's something I would say too, and maybe it just comes down to whether it's ego or whatever it is, or being trained in the industry and things that you said. If I had a creative, they have a talent that I don't have, and I need them to lead with that because I can't control something I don't have. Like, I can't control their creativity because I don't have the creativity they have, and boxing that in. Why wouldn't somebody allow the employees or somebody to lead or guide what they think marketing should be? As a business owner, don't you think, especially as an asset manager in the financial world, you may be good at talking to advisors, you may be good at a few things, but why would anybody think that their marketing plan and everything is creative or consumable?
Let's play this out. I love this topic. Let's say you and I both, all right, you are the senior vice president of marketing. You report to a CMO. Okay. You know that the CMO wants to bring in someone to manage consumable content and put together a consumable content team. And the CMO has them report to you. You are not going, like, in that world, you will not give them the autonomy they need, because in the back of your mind, you are scared that they will outshine you.
So it's a politics thing.
Absolutely. Well,
Is
God
there-
forbid the consumable content people come in, it's shiny new bells and whistles, getting all the attention, driving traffic, da 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 da. Okay, what's your value to the world been, Ryan, for the last 5 years? What, you have your head in the sand? Couldn't figure this out? This guy's been here for a year. Look what it's done to our business. And you're like, you're gonna throw a wet blanket on them as often as you can. You're gonna take little digs at the CM when you've got the CMO's ear. You're like, can you believe they were filming these guys out in the parking lot? You believe that? And you're taking little shots along the way to undermine the whole thing.
Do you think there's a level, or is it a personality or a culture of a business that allows that change to happen? Or does it have to be so small that everybody wants to grow so they're all comfortable trying new things?
That's why I think a boutique or a David does it, because I don't think a Goliath Like there's too many people with incentive in there to, like there's too, even if this SVP, you get on board with it and you can suck your pride and be like, we have to do this together and we're going to make this together. The person under you who wants your job is going to undermine it. The VP is going to start to get the CMO's ear and be like, I don't know. I don't know. I had an advisor told me that they thought our stuff was goofy.
Do you think
Right.
there's some types of fix in the outsourcing world, something that we do where you can say, I'm not bringing somebody in-house, but you go to your CMO or you're talking to the SVP or whoever you honor to, and you say, hey, I found this group. I want to try to bring them in and see if we can't add a little bit of more marketing of things that we don't have the capacity to do that we can deliver to somebody else.
There is, because that allows, I think, that SVP, one, they're less of a threat because they're outsourced. So they can always be fired. Not a big deal. Like, we're not going to go with you anymore. It doesn't seem like it's working. And they can just make that decision probably. And then tell the CMO that we just hired the wrong company and we're going to go with somebody else. And, or they can mold it the way you did and say, we're going to kind of work together, but they can manage it. Like inviting the, I'm trying to use an analogy here, like inviting new blood cells into the body. Like you can't control where they go. And if you invite that content manager in, he or she is going to be talking to the head of sales, HR. They're going to be all over the company. And now you can't control them and manage where they go. And now you're scared.
But it's also probably what's best for the company.
It sure is. But there's a lot of things that are best for the company that people suppress. And, did you ever watch, I don't know, like, you ever watch Downton Abbey or the Queen or any of that stuff on Netflix?
I've seen a few episodes, not consistently.
So where I'm going with that is these big entities, like these families and companies, they have so many handlers that the actual truth never makes its way to the top. A version of the truth gets there. So the CEO at the end of the day walks away with his direct reports telling him or her everything that went on that day, and they feel good about it, or they make decisions based on stuff, but they don't know the whole truth because they're not in the trenches. And that's what the corporations, that's all the stuff that happens in the middle that I'm talking about that prevents real change.
That's a good point and really tough. How do you stop the game of telephone?
You don't. You build a really good company with a really good culture from the top down at the beginning.
But it goes to show how much there is in making decision versus consumable content, right? Here you and I are, here I am way on the outside of not living in there. And I'm like, why won't you guys post on LinkedIn? But we just had a 30-minute, 45-minute conversation that makes a little bit more sense of at least why I can step into the brain of a CMO inside the corporate structure.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, I think the outsourcing to get the buy-in is what they probably need to do, so that it feels like there's still some control within, because they're not just going to give it up.
That's tough. And I would think too, I've always liked the idea of consulting and marketing with somebody's current team, because I feel like while we also have a capacity for asset managers and things and people really to move if they already have a team, imagine how much we can do if we can guide them to help create a little bit of consumable content. And then, we're both working together and build up their in-house in the non-scary way that you're thinking, where we can dodge the corporate because we're coming in from the outside with our insight and they have control over our relationship. So at least they can see the marketing and feel it out rather than us just letting it into the company and turning it on its head, which I think would help, but is scary and not necessarily a realistic move.
I think this is why you and I've had to talk offline, why is not a place that we can fit, because there's not enough flexibility and buy-in at a shop that size. Like even right, I don't know what the billion, like, but you need to work with the ones that don't have that infrastructure in place yet, and just they've tried things but nothing's worked, and then they believe in what we're talking about. That's what will get us there.
That's it. How long? I don't know how long this is. This whole
crazy, right? Though.
Yeah, it is. And it goes to show too, and how you're marketing and what you're thinking. I think these topics are big, man. I think these are pain points. I think that's what you should be talking about. Telling people, like, if you don't like what the politics are like, what other companies are going to, if you're a smaller asset manager, why you can excel past them, how you're going to get to your billions and why they're having trouble. Like that, every advisor business that has to do with money snowballs, but you have to get to like the snowball situation. And I think growing there, you know, and how you grow there coming from the right way, I think you have a lot of insight on how people can do that.
I mean,
Just sharing your stories.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's asset managers that are really ideal fits for us, and there's some that aren't. And the ones that aren't generally are the bigger ones, which that's okay. There's fits for them out there that just aren't us. And I don't want to pretend to play where we don't fit.
I agree. This is kind of exactly what we were talking about too, in terms of reactionary content. I heard stuff from you I've never heard before. And I don't know if you could have sat down and thought this out by yourself, because what would have been the reason? Like, if you're going to create something, it's because you read a comment or you saw a post or we had a member meeting and you have this fire, you're sitting on the beach and you're like, guys, we're fucking competing with everybody. But if I challenge you and I ask you a question, now and I start digging, like, it comes out. This is what we have to do for other people. I could cut this out and send it to you. This is 45 minutes. Like, there has to be at least, and I tried to be as quiet as I could answering questions. There has to be times when you can clip out like at least 3 of your answers that turns into a video.
This is why we need to do more video, not just us, but everybody and who we work with, more documenting of it, because you're right. I mean, and we've been off calls. I'm like, damn, you just spit fire. Like, that was 2 minutes of just straight. And it's just because it just comes from within and you're ready to go.
I don't even mind putting people through the email list or whatever. That's part of the reason why I was going on Zoom. If you and I were doing this and had other people asking us questions, we could ask them. Imagine if we had advisors, asset managers on here, and I'm like, hey, Jim, can I ask you a question real quick? Silent everybody else and be like, Jim, when you're working and you're trying to talk to advisors, like, what are you dealing with? And he comes out, or then you can give your answer directly to him. Then that, to me, that's the moment, like, that needs to come out.
That might be a new thing. It might be you and I could call it, Open Forum Tuesday or something. That doesn't have to be titled, but
yeah.
And the only thing in there is that, people know that we're going to use some of the content out of it, and we can keep them out. We can tell them that, but we're going to use our reactions and our stuff.
Oh, well, it's free. I don't care. I'm tell everybody, I don't even care about telling everybody. I'll be like, look, this is all free. I'm just, right at the beginning, this is free, where it's being recorded, whatever. Cool. I think that was really good. I don't know if you want to take this file and give it to Kristen, or give it to Amanda.
Yeah, we'll definitely use this, because there's clips in here from you too. I think we need to be recording more of what we have and just getting it curated, and she's good at that, so we'll do that.
Yeah, I think there's a couple good questions in here that lead to your good answers, something that could cut off and go on the brand page. I imagine you had a riff where you started talking about the industry that you could go on your own. Like, this is the things, we have 30 minutes of conversation. I have to imagine there's 10 pieces of content in here that she could grab.
I think, and I think that, there needs to be a future too, in which you are figuring out what you're doing with YouTube and even a podcast. Because everyone thinks this podcast thing is so, I have to have guests. Like, it's not that. Like, and that's one of the craziest things that I'm trying to explain to people. Like, you don't need to line up 50 people to interview. Just start sharing audio files.
Yeah. It's the same as posting. You're just posting audio. But I agree, and I think that does have to be a step. One of the things and maybe that's one of the things that does lead to business. And that's what's tough, is that, like, do we change the capacity of our employees? Because if I had lead that on Kristen, then I know that could almost max her out, putting out a podcast and putting that stuff. But
it's going to have to, because I'm telling you, dude, I will go to my grave with this. I do not believe people are buying services like ours because of a brand. I do not believe that. No one is saying I need to work with MCo because of the brand. They're saying Ryan and Corey work at MCo, and that's how I found them.
Yes, I completely agree. And if anything, you only care about the brand, I feel like, when the team gets big enough to supplement, like you said, when people step in and they know what they're getting. When you see like a Trust and Will, I feel like you know what you're coming into. Like, people don't go to Trust and Will because of Cody, but
no,
but they will come to MCo because of us.
They will go to Trust and Will. They will find out about Trust and Will because of Cody.
Or more so, I was going to say, they actually do, and it's because of all their teams there. It's Melinda, right. And it's everybody.
You did not find Refine Labs without Chris Walker. I promise you that.
Yeah, and that's again, I think the brand always leads back to the company, and that's what we have to focus on. So I agree.
Yeah.
Whether that means me implementing a YouTube channel or something, that's why I'm looking to not have to go outside and sit on video a few times. I want there's something to be where we go and we can actually produce the content that gives us. I thought advisor to advisor would be that, and it didn't seem to be it. So I'm trying to recreate that value. If we can do that, maybe it's just these talks every once in a while or something, but that's what I'm looking to do. Create the event that allows us the curation that keeps our content going. And then you and I are basically hands off. And we have videos per week because we spent an hour and a half talking to a bunch of random people. And there's 2 videos from you, 2 videos from me. And if we're doing it every week, that's content mixed with text posts will never run out.
I agree with it. Cool. All right, let me guide this young lady on this website for a little while.
Yep.